Okay, listen, we're going to have a quick dive into our next episode. Episode 10. Feels good to get into double digits, especially when it's kind of a surprise like this. Jesse is a good buddy of mine, and we were supposed to be catching up on the logistics of the podcast, and instead we got into the empowerment of solid app design. It's one of my favorite conversations with him in particular because he's been in app design for a long time for a major company that you've definitely heard of that we won't share during this podcast. But I love talking to him with all the breakthroughs and new releases like Liquid Glass, which we heard all about at WWDC 25, and new things like the Photos app layout and the Apple Invitations app, which is totally different than anything else that we've seen out there. He has really cool opinions on it, and he just started giving his opinion on app design as a whole, and I just let him go. And so what you're going to hear is a guy who's full tilt into something that he knows everything about. So if you're not into app design, this is going to be a way deep dive for you. If you are, you're going to get to hear someone who's an expert talk about what he knows best, which is one of my favorite things to do, regardless of the field, but especially when it comes to technology and the way that Apple does it. Here we go. Jesse Coleman, enjoy.
I think it's been this constant debate of, hey, do you trust Apple system colors? Does it have a accessible standard that's high enough? It's this thing of but part of the problem though is we shouldn't be doing lots of colors in our app anyways. The app really should be kind of the system colors that work for fonts and backgrounds and stuff like that, unless you choose that as a branding, which is those are those things where you're pulling your hair out because you're like, you don't want their stuff. And then you're complaining about like the tech debt, but then you build in so much tech debt by choosing to make this a branding moment when you have dark mode instead of just doing system colors. And so we end up having to have all this tech debt to like, okay, well, this doesn't look good on the blue background. Like we're having to like fix everything all the time instead of just having it work, which is just such a pain. But we're getting more into like charts and graphs and things like that. So you have to show color but there's this, they have Swift charts and they've figured out color and they figured out how you can like scroll along and hear audible signals. So all those colors really become decorative. So when you look at WCAG accessibility standards, if stuff is decorative, you don't have to meet these thresholds of like contrast ratio. And also if you have different ways of telling that information, which we do. So anyways, it just becomes this huge like roundabout argument.
So over the last 4 months, I've heard tech debt like increasingly more in terms of a vocabulary word. And I've always kind
Mm,
of been like, okay, I think I can infer enough to like understand kind of what that means. But the way that
yeah.
you've used it makes me think I don't quite have a grasp on it. So tell me what you mean by tech debt.
I think what it means to me as a designer is pretty different than what it would mean to like a
Oh,
developer to some degree. I mean, like for us, if we have a component that has a certain header font and a certain body font, and I want that, and that's how it's built, and we can put stuff in that all day long. And it's built and it's part of our library. It doesn't feel like it should be this big tech debt for me to say, hey, I want the body font to be a little bit bigger and bold, right? Like that's all I want to do. No, that's a whole new component. That's going to be custom code. It's going to be custom, um,
ah,
you
okay.
know.
Yeah,
And it's weird because those little things that should just be, oh, I'm changing the font on this one area of the app for a
yeah.
couple things becomes, oh well, that's a new font style and a component, and so that's something we have to maintain. We have to remember. We have to like da, da, da. So there's this constant battle of, well, yes, you do have to do that, but what's the benefit? What's the outcome of it that's like good? We're communicating better. We're showing information in a way that's more consumable. So you have to kind of make those arguments to the designer, like this is worth this effort to go do. Um, but then tech debt also, like the way I was using it is, um, okay, we can use Apple system colors out of the box. And what we get is we get accessible fonts and colors. Or if we do our background, we now have this blue that's not the normal background color. And so then we create our own colors for that. So now this whole idea of trying to keep things simple goes out the window because we've already sort of shot ourselves in the foot by not using system colors and system stuff because we're trying to be more branded. So there's always this trade-off. And I feel like a lot of, I don't know who's doing this, but it just feels like we're constantly having these arguments of like, oh no, we're going to do dark mode so you know it's a branded app. And it's like, there's better ways to do that than using the background color to do it. Because if you use the background color to brand your app, you have all of these issues of color and you're constantly having to maintain and own the rules for contrast ratios and stuff like that versus just going, Apple's
Yeah,
figured
right.
out, we've got it, let's go build it. So
Okay.
that can show up in so many different places. But a lot of it too is like just simple things like old code or old pages. We're having to
I think
do,
that's where I was hearing it
yeah,
mostly. Okay.
a lot of tech debt is custom things in your code that
It was a
you're constantly have to,
Band-Aid from 2024, and then now
right. And
it's
but it's like that band-aid is keeping 10 other band-aids working. And so
yeah.
you change that one band-aid and then it's just like this domino effect of like, oh, why are we now showing everything in pounds instead of dollars? All this weird thing that was like holding that all together that nobody knew all the connections to, like we pulled this
Yeah.
one string and screwed everything up. But
Okay.
yeah,
Interesting. So what is the cost of the change that you want to make?
I mean,
I'm
there's
throwing
the
I'm
cost
throwing
of,
a definition out there. I'm not saying I'm
right.
not asking you to answer the question. I'm throwing a definition out.
So like in this example, like we have a card and then the card is made up of a title and body, and you can add buttons, you can add list rows or things like that. So there's some components within that component that are optional or variables. Um, but like how Apple Health has you burn this many calories this week or something like that. It's like a large calorie number in smaller text. It's all we want to do. I mean, I can comp it up in 2 seconds, right? Like
Yeah.
it's just a font size change. And it's also for a specific area of the app that we like, we're not asking for this to be available to everybody in the company and to own it. And like we want to make and this is the hard part because now you're kind of getting into how companies work. And I don't think this is very unusual, but we're kind of an enterprise team building enterprise solutions that's not really sitting in bank or insurance. So there's all these lines of business, right? So like bank has money and funding and all this stuff, and they're building things like your transactions and credit card stuff, right? We're
Okay.
doing this thing that's kind of taking data and saying your financial health is made up of all of these different factors, very much like health app does it. And so bank's not consuming anything we're building, but we're consuming their data and presenting it to the member in a more valuable way. So it crosses those lines between these LOB partners and becomes this thing that's like and I'll call it my team is personalization. Like we're personalizing your data and showing you insights about your finances. So it's like a page that does that. Nobody else is doing that anywhere else in the app. So we're trying to go to like the design system people and say, this is a multi line of business need because we're taking data and showing stuff, but what's only going to be on this page and we're going to control it. So we need our own, we need that card built this way that only we consume and can use in the app. But they have to maintain it.
It seems like a hard sell when you say it like
Yeah,
that. You probably
it's
don't
a
pitch
hard.
it like that.
No, I don't pitch. I'm trying to explain everything to you, but like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the better way to pitch it to them, if I was pitching it to them, would be something like we've got multiple use cases where this is going to be super valuable. Here's the value that it's going to bring to our membership and why it's important and why the current system is not working, right? The problem is we're not set up as a company to where we have sort of components that only certain teams are able to use. They're more of like a gatekeeper. Like the design system team is more
Okay.
gatekeeping. So like here's the things you have. If you don't use those, that's a problem. And if you have a big enough problem, you can come to us and ask us to solve that problem for you. But if you do, you have to like pull in, you have to show us that there's enough use cases to make it worthwhile. But
Sure.
like worthwhile to who? Well, to them. So it's like you're trying to achieve some benchmark that you don't really know that only they can tell you. So you can kind of give them all the information, all the data, and then they go talk about no, we're not going to do that. We don't see the value. But you don't have any rationale for why. And that's a problem. And that's like kind of the weird, just how companies work.
Well, yeah, I
But it's
think the
like,
relationship between designers and engineers, I mean, this is what has been the case for 1,000 years.
yeah, but
Is
it's
like,
it's getting to where though design isn't a battle with the design system team, which used to not be the case, right? Like the design system used to be this like really great thing, which was like, oh, we can be consistent now. Like we can build stuff and it's going to look the same.
okay,
It's going to be really good, right? But part of that is a lot of design systems go like, okay, we're this big company who's been around 100 years and we've got a transaction page, we've got an insurance page, we've got all these products. Let's formalize the system from what we have today and say, okay, here's our new system. They do that, but then it's like, oh, we have the ability to now to like pull together data in new ways that we couldn't ever do, like with Adobe Experience Manager or these tools that can kind of connect dots. People want, their banking company go like, hey, I want you to tell me when I've got a subscription that goes up, or if I have too many subscriptions, or how much am I spending on subscription? Like they want you to do all this calculations for you that used to be like something that was on you to do. You'd have to go through your transactions and find all this stuff and do that. No one has time for that. And really, it's all data. So you should be able to do that as a bank, right? So now it's like, okay, we want to go build this innovative thing, but we've got components from the way we've been doing stuff for the last 15, 20
oh,
years. So it's
so
like,
they want you to build a Ferrari, but they want you to use Toyota parts.
exactly, right. So it's kind of like, hey, we've got these things that we've been using in bank forever, just use that. Well, it looks
Yeah,
bland, it
okay.
looks like we need charts, we need bigger numbers, and they're not complicated things. But then it's like, well, in your design system team, they're motivated by like, you need to follow the rules and use the things, and if you don't use the things, you're building custom stuff and that costs money, and things don't
Yeah.
look consistent, things don't look the same. That's kind of just baseline. Everything that comes through here, if it's not from our system, it's default bad in our minds, because it's different. It's just like, and that's that gatekeeper mentality. And really what a design system in my mind should be in a company should be, hey, we formalize that. And now what our job is not necessarily to go like be the gatekeeper and going like, are you using everything exactly right? And be this like bean counter with design. But really they should go like, oh, you're doing something that has tremendous value. We need to formalize that into something that supports you and what you're trying to do, right? And
Gotcha.
they need to be doing that. Like, and multiple teams are coming and saying, we need charts, we need charts. And it's taken us 3 years to convince them that we need charts, but it's like, I mean, you're a bank. It's like being able to show like spent over time or any of that stuff. It's not like it's not like that needs grown over 3 years. It's more like enough people have asked over and over and over again and be like, why do we not have charts? That they're finally like, oh, okay, we'll do charts. So it's like it just takes way too long to get to that point though. They need to be a lot more like, I see the value, this is the value add. And instead they're looking at all of their decisions through. This is going to be something we have to build and maintain and check boxes. We're going to have to check more boxes now, which is a terrible way to look at stuff. So no innovation happens, right?
But yeah, I mean, it sounds like what you want is to be empowered by your design system team, where if you come up with an idea, you want them to be like, that's awesome. Let me figure out how to build a structure, like build more lattice in the garden to give you some fresh lattice so that you can grow this design on. And instead, they're just more like, this doesn't fit in our current lattice structure. So sorry,
And we don't want to build more because that'll be more work for us, and then we'll have to
work for
maintain
us.
that. So it's just that it's just more of this like it's a very much just like a short-sighted decision quality
Hmm.
process, right? Like how you make decisions, like what are the things you're weighing, what are the risks, what are the benefits? Like if all you're looking at is, does this fit the system? And if it doesn't, the other way they're making decision is like, how many teams are going to use this? and they don't even have a number. It's not like, oh, if three or more teams are going to use this, then we're going to say yes.
There's no
It's like
protocol, no
there's
decision.
nothing. They're just like, well, we need lots of. There needs to be multiple use cases. It's like,
Yeah.
well, it's our team doing multiple use cases with multiple data sets from multiple lines of business. So it's like, why does that not count?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
it should, right? Because it's like, and it is benefiting them. And we've got data to say people who are getting personalized insights are, three times more likely to get more products than someone who's
Mhm.
not. Like, we've got lots of quantitative data from that. So it's like, we know this is a beneficial thing. We also have tons of research from like Forrester and all these industry research people saying this is important. Um,
Mhm.
and we've got customers going like, yeah, I want you to tell me, am I financially healthy or not? And help me figure that out. Because I learned everything from Uncle Ted, who's kind of a crazy guy. Because you know what I mean? Like most people don't learn finances from any like they learn it from some Aunt Lorraine or like whatever. It's like, oh,
Yeah, sure.
you should never go in debt. And I only write checks and I don't ever use credit cards. And like it's just these like family kind of hangups that people just latch onto and don't really know why they're doing what they're doing.
Yeah, sure.
Anyways,
Interesting. Is financial literacy something you think about during your design work?
yeah, because I mean,
Charts part of that?
we know for a fact that most people do not have a high financial acumen.
I mean, how much of these kind of products and services come out of your design team? I mean, because this is it's just interesting to me that it sounds like design is kind of driving products and services, or at least ease of maybe is it data information that you're getting that you're able to kind of put together better for the consumer through your design, and that's what's driving some of these ideas.
Yes, I mean, and I don't mean to talk about all this stuff. We're not really talking about the the podcast, but I can tell you about like what I do more. But
I
personalization
kind of feel
is
like we're in a podcast right now, so I'd love to hear about
okay.
it.
Okay, so personalization is like when you think about personalization, a lot of companies have this, right? A lot of people think personalization is customization, which is a very different thing. They're like, oh, I put my name and now you say, hi, Scott. Like to some degree, that is personalization, right? Like we're remembering your name, we're putting it into the code. So
Hey, I sent you the screenshot
birthday card.
of my wife's birthday. Yeah, on her
Yeah.
birthday, there was active confetti. It was like we were in
Confetti.
iMessage. It was wild.
Yeah. Well, that's
You knew
personalization
about that right
100%.
away. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's my team. So, and the confetti
Awesome.
part is a really funny one because we got that in the app probably, 5, 6 years ago. I mean, like right when I joined, that was a big push by my product manager to like, we want to like, and and my team used to own the member homepage. So we owned a lot of that native code. And this was a
Okay,
little bit back when we could go change that if we wanted to and say, okay,
got
this
it.
is the new system. And we could budget and go build it. Now there's like a design system team.
Yeah.
It's kind of this weird takeover, to be honest. So there's a lot of politics with it, but there's some good things that come out of it. But a lot of it has just been it's just a lot more rigorous in terms of every design that goes out the door needs to go through all of these checks, and you have to do this foundation review, which the foundation review is really just us saying, here's what we're giving to the development team, and they go. Um, And we're also supposed to do like an accessibility thing where we say what the screen reader is going to say on each section, which I don't think any developer looks at, to be honest. So it's like we do all this work, but it's like, and that's the thing though, all of these systems of checks and balances are built by this design team, the
Design
design
system.
systems team. Yeah. But they're kind of almost like in this bubble and they don't really know how design and product work together and how things get handed off. It's just like all theoretical, but it's like, and we've told them that before. We're like, this isn't like, oh, you just have to do this for compliance. We have to have a paper trail so they're just all very like paper pushing kind of feels like to
Got it.
me. But
Okay.
personalization though was started going, hey, we can connect dots for people using data. So it's all very data driven. And it's one of these teams that was spun up too that's like different than any other team in that the director who started it, this was like 8 years ago. It was before I joined. They had been going for like 2 or 3 years. But she was like, every decision we're going to make is going to be really data driven. We're going to be able to track, we want to track all of our work and know the implications of it. So from the get-go, we started doing these test and learns where we have a control group that's not seeing personalization. And if we're testing, we might have a pilot group that's like we might say, okay, 500,000 members are going to go see this. And then we might compare that to, 20,000 people who aren't seeing it. And they're looking at a lot of factors like, okay, they're seeing um, they're seeing this, and this. And so if we look at like that same segment of the people who are seeing it versus the same segment that's not in large numbers, we can kind of start to see patterns of, well, people who are seeing that are actually getting more products, or people who are seeing this are calling less, or people who are, receiving personalization are, and calls are huge cost. So driving costs, calls down, self-servicing, deepening, which is like more products, things like that. Those are all signals that like, hey, we're doing the right thing. And people are staying and going deeper with
What's
USA.
deepening? Oh, like more clicks into the app?
Not deepening, it's more like it's
We're
more
getting
product. Yeah, more
more
products. Like
products. Okay.
we're deepening our enmeshment, I guess you could say,
Okay.
in terms of our
Bundle and
relationship, right?
save. Yeah. Bundle and
Yeah, I mean
save.
that's a deepening method, right? Is like we you get more products with this, so the ability to like leave becomes harder, right? Because you got more things connected, and I mean, if we're doing a good job, you should be happy though. I mean, it's not like, hey, we're going
Sure.
to trick you into getting this terrible card and like lock you in for life. Like that's just bait and switch stuff. So we do a lot of, so what it started off with real simply was things like, it was like, welcome or good morning, Scott, or something like that. Like we might say that on member home. So just real
Okay.
simple things like that. And then it's like, then we could do things like, we might send you a card that said, did you know renter's insurance covers flood and blah, 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 or valuable property? Or we might know something about your products or know something about what you're doing or what you might need and proactively kind of give you information that we know people who just like one of the ones that's like kind of interesting. I don't think we ever did it, but like whenever people get a new credit card, something like 80% of the people go on a trip. So that's one
Oh,
of those insights. Like you just got a new credit card. So
yeah.
we can connect those dots in an interesting way and show that. But what that ends up doing though, and what happened over time is you end up showing these cards, and a lot of them are valuable, and a lot of them are like high probability of something you might need, but they're also dismissible. So you can say, no, I don't want to see that. And we also track that and try to be listening to stuff like that too. And so we had things like getting married soon checklists or insights or buying a car or moving. So there's lots of stuff like changing your address and your mail and your bills. So we start to remind you of all those things and start to proactively help you. Because I mean, the other thing is you have to find that in the app. Like you're not normally changing the address on bills. And so you'd have to go, okay, where would I go to find this?
Ah, interesting. So you're pulling these like deep dives on the app, like 4 or 5 clicks and settings or whatever, to the
Right.
front
Instead of
of
them,
the
instead of
card.
them going and doing it, which people will get frustrated and call and be like, where,
Yeah.
how do I do this? Right. We can go like,
Yeah. Okay.
hey,
That's great.
here's how you change your bill. You'd go, would you like to do that now? No, it goes away. Or yes, and it deep dives you into like, yeah, 5 or 6 clicks in. But
Okay.
we surface that on the front page because we know stuff that's going on with you. Right. So,
Yeah.
but it's all you have to so what it is that's you're creating insights. And one of the big things too is like insights and then actions. So actions are like, okay, I have an insight that um I might take a couple insights. One might be like your age, your income, your debt, and you just moved, right? So I might take I might have something has moved, has changed address recently.
Is your team building these if then statements?
Yeah,
These
we're
line
building these
flows?
insights. So we're
Oh,
listening
okay.
for so we're able to like I mean almost thinking of it like chips, like leave insight things. And at the beginning it was like we'd stack those insights. And so those like these three insights could trigger an action like is moving soon, right? And that might show a card that says, hey, are you moving soon? And you say, yes, I am. And like, would you like to like when are you moving? Like we can help you with that. So we might, and then that triggers the whole. Now we've got all these new insights that are triggering new cards that are saying, well, you need to change your address and you
Yeah.
need to change this, and we might surface that stuff for you. So, but each of those actions were triggered by particular insights that had to be true for that action to show up. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
But the way it was first built was that we had three insights grouped together that would show up there. And so if you wanted a new action, you had to go group another things of insights. The way they, like, I think it was like 3 years ago, they kind of decoupled those to some degree to where those insights are all independent and can be built more like Lego blocks. This doesn't sound like that interesting, but like it's just the way the code was built. That was one of those big tech debt things where like, hey, we thought this was a good system to build at the beginning, and now we've learned actually if you can have all those independent product managers can go like, oh, I need to know is between the ages of this and this, and has more than $20,000 in debt. I'm going to give them a low interest loan, action
Okay.
card. I want to like
Yeah.
present to them something like that. That's one of those things we never market though. So like that's not a great example, but we never do market anything. Like we're not marketing to people.
Through the cards, you're not.
No, that was one of the other things with personalization where we're always like, we're only showing you things that are like passive or direct like interest, or we know like you already have that product and we're telling you information about it, right? Or
Okay.
if you did click on something and showed interest in it, we could show you something. We weren't guessing. Like marketing a lot of times goes like, hey, this person doesn't have a credit card, let's offer them a credit card. That's kind of another marketing insight action type thing that you can do. But again, that's marketing. That's saying this person has a high probability to get this product, and we're going to go ahead and offer them that product. We don't do
Okay.
that.
You don't do that. It's more
No,
like,
all
hey,
of our stuff is
let me
like,
help you get ahead of the frustration of updating
hey,
your
we think you need
profile.
to go find this page.
Yeah.
Click here to go to that page, so you don't
It's
have to
really
go
just guessing
figure it out.
shortcuts.
Right.
Super helpful.
Hmm. Yeah, and we have like years of data because we run these pilots too. Because a lot of them, like one of them, for instance, was like high consumer loans. So we did a pilot where it was like you've missed like all the insights were things like, so say you have like a car loan and you missed like two payments. We might say, hey, you're overdue on this car loan. Um, would you like to talk to somebody, or would you like to look at options for help? Like we were trying to proactively help people who are getting behind, so we could kind of go
Yeah,
like,
sure.
instead of you just ignoring it, put your head in the sand, which is a lot of times what people do. They don't know what are the options that I can do. Like I'm in trouble. I don't even
Or I'm
know the
divorced.
questions. Yeah, I don't know the questions to even ask, or what are the tools to help me with a kind of a loan that I'm upside down on. So
Who's hypothesizing about the problems like that, like car loans and moving addresses? Is that your team? Who's pontificating about the needs of the consumer? Is it the
yeah,
design
so
team?
that's we've got digital product managers who are aligned to different product teams. So there's one guy who focuses on insurance. He meets with the insurance, we call them DPMs, digital product managers. They're almost like designers because they're going out and talking to, say, a bank and saying, hey, personalization can help you increase engagement to this page. Then we start looking at like, why would someone come here? What are those insights that we could trigger that then shows a card that helps them get there faster? A lot of times the bank is kind of going like, hey, people can't find this page and are calling in all. So some of it
Okay.
might be that direction. They'll come to personalization and go, hey, this seems to be a problem. It's a navigation problem. And people tend to want to go here in these scenarios. We can then work backwards and sort of put together insights and then actions to get them to the right place.
Okay, got it. Yeah. All right. So they're saying, can you give us a design solution for these
They
user
kind of
experience?
start with they start with the business team, kind of a front door thing, and go, is this a right fit for personalization?
Okay.
And so they'll meet with them, and if they're kind of like, I think this could be good, they kind of come to me We'll say like, hey, what do you think about this idea? And then we'll go, oh yeah, that would fit this, you know, this thing we can do design
Yeah.
wise, or we have a system for that. And then we would mock it up and show, hey, this is where, like, this is the deep dive that it would take you to. One of the hard parts about that though is like, it sort of creates this like, so say you're like, hey, did you want to pay more per month for your loan or something like that? We might know that through whatever insights. And if you say, yes, I do, and we drop you into this page, it's like the loan page, but it's like 20 different things on there. Like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? Do you want to do right? Like
It
you're
wasn't, it didn't
now
remember the selection.
like loan team came to us and like people don't know how to change a loan. They're calling here all the time. Part of it is their page. Their page is just, you know,
Yeah.
just this word wall of, and it's not designed well, and it's an old like web view or something, right? So it's like that was a lot of the times our conversations like, well, part of this is really hard to find on your page. Like you need to optimize your page. And a lot of times, like that was one of our big triggers. It's like, well, they need to go to this one, not to that main page. We're like, oh, well, we want them to see everything that they could do. I was like, well, that's not. Then you're making them hunt and peck. So like we'd have
You
to have
want
all
to,
these like,
yeah, they can borrow more money here. Like we don't want them to miss that
but that's not
option.
the problem, right? Yeah. So it's like we would have a lot of those, and
They can
that's
fix
kind
it.
of been an
But on their
interesting.
way to fixing it, they might borrow some more money.
Yeah, but like show them this really terrible page and have them go find what they were looking for originally. It's like that,
Yeah.
and it's weird. It's like you have these like, it's like, well, here's why that doesn't work, and here's the data that shows it. And so like that was the cool thing is we had done that enough times that where we could be like, no, like just no, we're not doing that. And sometimes they'd escalate it, right?
Very design
Like
system of you.
like bank would be like, yeah. Well, it was less about the design system and more about like, um, we can deep dive your page, but and that was the other thing is they needed to. There's so much in this, but a lot of times those partners didn't have good tagging of their pages. So
Mhm.
for us to be able to deep dive them in there, they didn't really have good links to get them to where they needed to go. And then if you
Uh,
got them there, it was like a whole bunch of other fluff, and so it was like it was very, you know,
yeah.
just because we know where you need to go doesn't mean we can get you there. And a lot of that was those partners that we were talking to. They were coming to us to build something because we had good data and could do it. But they a lot of times, and it was solve a problem for them, and they would get sort of good kudos, and they would get like they were measuring like, oh, more people did this, we reduced calls, and so like I'm a product manager who is successful, and I should get a bonus, right? But it's like they got some other team to do all the work, so it looks really good to them. Like we didn't spend any money, and like Persolation helped us out, and it all like big success, high five. But it just kind of kicked the can down the road a lot of times of not fixing their page and how that worked, right? So all this uncovered tech debt, exactly, lots of times. And in like the happy path though, it was like, oh yeah, like you want to get them there. Here's a really good rationale for what like how to focus in on the right member to like surface this card and give them. I mean, think about it like it's almost like push notifications. If you think about it, really, like that's kind of what we do. We go like, oh, you've subscribed to this YouTube channel and you watched a lot of that, this comedian. So we're going to prioritize that one over these other
Yeah.
guys. YouTube's figuring that stuff out all the time, and surfacing the stuff that they think is going to be most interesting to you to go click on. More marketing, different rationale, but same idea.
So I got one more question from the design perspective. I've heard some complaining, and I'm wondering if you're in this group or not, or if it doesn't matter at all to you, but I've heard some complaining about the way that Apple has the settings set up for apps, that you have to go through settings, and then now there's actually another button to get to it through the apps button all the way down to USAA in order to control the settings for the USAA app, which is a little bit different than Android for a lot of the apps. You don't go through the
Mm-hmm.
settings to get to the settings for Android, you just do it inside of the app itself in order to configure that. Do you have a preference on either one, or do you think that one's superior over the other? Would you have it the Android way if you could?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think in a way it simplifies things the Android way because, for instance, like even the accessibility, that's like this huge debate, right? Where it's like, oh, we shouldn't expect them to change their phone settings. Like our app should work out of the box. If they've never changed their phone settings, it should work. But it's like the reality of someone owning a phone and navigating all these apps and having this ability to change, like I need to see things in like super high contrast, you know. There's nothing we're going to go build that's going to go do that in our app, like out of the box.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you actually started the conversation talking about that, and I'm still not quite following. Are you saying that they want it to be ready out of the box for everyone to include accessibility settings, and that's kind of why y'all are down this like own personal one, like the one that you guys have built instead of using the.
Yeah. So like a good example of this is like we've got like a credit score, right? So USA came up with these like accessible colors for charts, but they're these really brown, terrible looking colors, right? And so, um, and yes, they are accessible. They meet the WCAG standard out of the box, right? But it's like, do we need to lead with that? Not everyone needs to see accessible
Yeah,
colors at that
gotcha.
level, right? And the reality is, even if we do go use that, yes, we're hitting this like AAA standard for contrast ratio in that
Okay.
scenario. But we're also kind of the majority of people seeing this is going like, that looks like dried mustard brown, which is supposed to be yellow. And this looks like muddy brown, which is supposed to be red, right? Like it's like these
Yeah.
really bad colors that aren't really, and most people think about credit score in terms of, yellow, you know, like
Red, yellow, green.
red, yellow, green, or yeah, sometimes orange in there too, you know. So anyways, it's like we know there's a standard expectation. There's a mental model of red, yellow, green for like bad, medium, good in terms of credit score. Credit score kind of has four groupings. So it's like, do you start off with the system colors and expect them to go change it? A lot of the like accessibility, people who are just like, you've got to do it. It's like, well, that setting really is there. And why don't we just trust that and use the system colors and we should be fine? That's a different conversation when you have to go out of the app and go in there to go set that up versus like you could technically get through it through like if that was there. The other big one to me, and I'm also on the messaging team, but like how you get alerts and messages is a huge problem, right? Because um there's so many new laws like have you ever heard of TCPA, um
Mm-mm.
telecommunication act protocol, I think like that, or
Okay.
I think that's what it is. Anyways, it's all the rules about like if you get an email from a mailing list, like you have to have an unsubscribe button or
Yeah.
if
I know that is
you
the Can Spam Act.
yeah, and then there's like T I haven't looked at it in like a year, but I used to know it really well. But there's all these rules now about like and it becomes really so like think about being a bank. Like, do you want to get alerts about every transaction? Yes or
Uh,
no?
no.
Yes. Well, say, okay, so say like I do, but I only want it on text, or I only want a push notification because it's like low impact. Like if I go scan, like when you go scan your Apple Card, it just automatically gives you like you just spent money here. It's like okay, good. It's just sort of like this gut check.
Okay, got
Like
it.
you don't want an email, and you
Right.
also don't want like you don't want a text message for that stuff. But it's like, well, some old person maybe does want an email, and so it's like you're kind of in this thing where it's like that's one setting for one notification type, right? And you think about all the stuff at USA, there's like, I mean, each bank has a list of stuff they want to like notify you about, and some of it they have to like we have to send you monthly transactions. Okay, do you want that in text? Do you want it in email? Do you want it in physical mail? Right? So you think about all those different settings and stuff like that. But then on top of that, Apple has its own sort of like notification center for that app. So we have to kind of understand what that setting is. And then we also have to have like a kill switch where it's like, I don't want any text messages, period. Like I need to be able to switch that switch and turn off all text messages everywhere. But it gets
Wow.
really complicated because then it's like if you have that kill switch, but you have like one setting,
Required statements.
yeah, one setting somewhere. And like you said, I also don't want any emails. We have to then go like, okay, well, we need this, or the way a lot of banks are doing that is it's like, give us your email, give us your phone number, and they're not giving you the options to control that in the app. Like you do it outside, like in the Apple settings, or if you get an email, you say unsubscribe, just unsubscribe from it. And it's on you at that point, right?
Sure. Yeah. That you guys did your job.
Right. But then, like, you think about huge banks who've been around forever, like, we can't do that. What if people make a mistake? So then it's all this like what if game that everyone's chasing their tail on.
Mm.
So it's like, but that's a really complicated one with like the Apple settings layered on top of your own app settings and like keeping those things in sync, right? Especially like communication preferences is really complicated. It gets really complicated really quickly.
It
And
really is.
part of
I've
that is our
noticed.
own problem, right? Like we shouldn't be asking you to manage whether or not you want to, you want to get an email for your transaction sent to this email address and this. Like we've given you the ability to give us multiple email addresses and multiple phone numbers. And it's just like a lot of the new challenger banks are just like one email, one phone number. We're not giving you all the options all the time. Um, and if we don't have that, you can't be a customer. You can't use the app, basically. But you also can't add like 10 people. You just can't be like, oh, I want this person to know and this person to know. Like that used to be a really cool thing that we could do. But you think about that in a house, like in householding is a whole other thing, right? Like, how do you deal with householding? Like, who spent money from this card when? And you should know that Apple Card's done a great job of that. Do you use Apple Card?
Yeah,
That's one of
absolutely.
those things that that's one of those things that like
It's
no
great.
other bank is doing as well as Apple, where it's like, I've got a card, I've shared it with my family. It's one of those things where um it's just really cool. That whole householding and how you track all that and separate people out and stuff like that. That's a challenge. That's a big one. But and it
Yeah, I
goes into the
remember.
settings because I think that one's leveraging like the family system, and then you can add people. But then I think there's some crossover into some of the settings in Apple Card. I'd have to go back and look at like how you get that all set up. But it's interesting to see it in Apple's own products because they do have specific settings in their own products, but heavily rely on the settings, like the system settings as well, to kind of manage, control that.
I For sure. And I've seen more and more settings bleed out of the settings app for third-party apps. Like the USAA one, I mean, all of them really third-party apps. There's
Yeah.
like five switches in there. Like, do you want Siri to interact with it? It's a bunch of like extra Apple add-ons basically that you're saying yes or no to, notifications. But
Yeah.
really, if you want to adjust the communication preferences on what notifications you're getting, now all that stuff is back over in the settings cog wheel in the top right corner of every third-party app. So they really have started moving everything over there. And it's really just like a couple of settings on how your third-party app interacts with the system, the most basic system settings of Apple. And that's what I've seen mostly over the last 5 years. Is that they've got
You're seeing sort of launch points to the system settings
I'm seeing far less. It's just
or
like
less. Oh, okay.
can it use your iPhone's camera? Can it use your location? And like that's it. All the
Right.
actual settings that adjust the app itself, or like communication preferences, or how you want your home screens displayed, or dark mode, or any of that, all of that is shifted over to inside of the app. And there's very few switches that are left, with the exception of every first party app. If I want to make all kinds of changes and add accounts and how I receive emails and what the default account is for Apple Mail, it's
Right.
all in settings and then apps and then mail. So it does seem like third party developers have really moved away from having their actual app settings in the Apple settings app.
Right. Because it creates this whole management spaghetti web, right? It's like, oh,
Right.
I've got to go ask and request what is the master preference if I want to over. And you see that too, where it's like I might onboard onto an app and turn off like, no, I don't want to share camera and microphone. But then it's like you might say, no, I don't need to do my like they might ask you the first time you get the app, hey, can we use camera and
Yeah.
microphone? Can we use your location services? And you say no, 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 no. And then it's like you go and you're like, I want to deposit a check. Like, do you want to turn on the camera notification? Like, oh yeah, I do want to go to right. So then you
Yeah.
pop it up when you try to go use a tool or something that needs that authentication, right? So another one is like your location services. Like that was also a big problem is like if we can know where you are and know you're spending money. Like if I know where your location is because I've got your phone location and then you swipe your card just bought something from Walmart and Wimberley or like HEB and Wimberley. And Scott is at HEB and Wimberley. Fraud is low,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Good point.
Versus like, oh, your card just bought, something in Arkansas and Scott is in Wimberley. It's like this is a high fraud case. And then we might send you like on your phone. So I'm like, did you
Ah,
just spend money
yeah.
here did you spend $250 at like, you know, Arkansas Razorback fan store or whatever? And I think you can do those
Absolutely
like
not.
big you could kind of connect the dots pretty interesting with that. But a lot of times people just don't want to turn on, you know,
Sure. No,
location services
80%
and
of
it
my
makes sense.
job, 80% of my job, yeah, is going over the encryption levels of the passwords app in order to demonstrate how the value of using it and the perceived decrease in security is totally worth it. Same with location services a lot. People just do the master switch on their Mac, like, no, can't use my location for anything. And then they're like, why is the weather Cupertino in my weather app all the time? Yeah,
Right.
I don't, it's like, well, let's flip some switches.
How do
And
you tell people that that's worth it or that it's safe or that it's like, yeah.
yeah, so it's the same speech every single time. So and I got and then I do the scales in between security and convenience. Especially talking about the encryption level, like especially the passwords app. I'll do the list. Special apps like passwords that need to be highly sensitive. Your iMessages, your Notes app, those are all 256-bit end-to-end encrypted. That's military grade stuff. And then sometimes I'll add on there, it's mathematically impossible for a computer to actually break that mathematical code in about 50 billion years. I
Mm.
might comment there for comparison that the universe has only been around for 13 billion. So it's highly secure.
I
Military.
mean, if you're not being biblical, no, I'm just kidding. Just joking.
Yeah, well, then we get into
Genesis
we
1:1 and
yeah, it's
what is
really
a day?
yes, it's just
Really?
evangelism that it gets is really what the whole thing is about.
Yeah.
But if we don't crack that doorway, we will just kind of wrap. By the end of that, they feel ultra secure with it, and
So
also,
that's you sharing your location is still encrypted to the level that would take 50 billion years to
well, no,
actually like,
what I'm talking
okay.
about right now is specific data for that the users are saving. So passwords, notes,
Mm,
health data, wallet, all of those are
those
256
things aren't, yeah,
encrypted.
those aren't.
Yeah, the location I don't have a speech on really. I just explain the benefits and talk about the general security level of Mac OS being highly secure and that this information here is through Mac OS. So as long as you got your system up to date, it's as secure as it can possibly be.
Yeah, because I've never heard of anyone sharing their location within a particular app and that being, I mean, audience of one. I mean, it's like I've never experienced it personally, but I'm sure it's not like this like top news story either. Like someone shared their location with like, you know, YouTube and now,
Sure. And so what I would want to do then is then communicate so you're on a closed ecosystem. Mac OS, especially iOS, is so secure that as long as you make sure to download these apps through the App Store, Apple has already
right.
gone through, check to make sure that they're using your information correctly. So we do want to share your location here with the weather app because that's first party. We know that's from Apple and any other apps that you have only downloaded through the App Store. So let's make sure that we're only sharing it with them, right? So then I'll go
Mm-hmm.
through, turn it on I mean, you got to turn on the switch so that it's even available. And then we'll check the boxes that are either system level for Mac OS, we know it's secure, or apps
Okay.
that we recognize. And I'll slow down and be like, do you recognize this app? I know it's NOAA, weather, climate, they're safe, but I'll just check in with them on each one and then empower them to make the decision. And then we'll delete it if they don't need it anymore, kind of thing.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's cool. I mean, that's one I feel like I have a lot of conversations with older family members and stuff like that. I've always been the tech guy, like both in my offices and also like with family and stuff like that. So a lot of those similar conversations. Definitely not as like I'm probably not convincing them as well as you are. A lot of times I'm just like, I promise you, nothing bad's gonna happen. No one really cares where you are. But, uh,
sure. Well, there's different kinds of learners, right? So
mhm,
Apple teaches four different learner styles. You got the director kind who's just like, you just need to do what they say. Like, just get
right.
it done. They don't need any other information. You got the learner
Mhm.
type that they want to hear all the information as you're going through it so that they are like, learning. You got emotional, that you really need to relate to them. So there's different types of people, and that I'll calibrate it for that. It's a lot easier in 2025, 2026 to get people to use the passwords app. When it first came out, everyone was saying, don't say my password. No, absolutely not. But then now everyone's so tired of passwords that they're like, why isn't this asking to say my password? Now I go through people's passwords book and delete all the ones that they told them to never save so that they can save them again. It used to be turning them on. Now I'm having to go through and delete all the ones that were told to never save it for this website.
Why is it that sometimes you log into an app, so it's like the onboarding of the app does not have a password? Like it's very, and I sort of see that with more weirder apps, like
It doesn't integrate with the passwords app, or it doesn't even have a password. Which one are we saying it
well,
skips?
like there's times where I will log into something and it never asks me to the password. And then I'm like, why didn't it do that? And so a lot of times I will specifically go ask passwords to give me the password for it. So I force that to happen, but it's like a
Yeah,
manual thing. It's not triggered and then it doesn't save it. So then I'm like, a lot of times it's also like these flows where it asks you for a username on one page and it goes, you go next. And then it goes to another one where it's like, give me your password. So then I think that's part of the problem is that Apple doesn't trigger like, hey, password and username is on the same page, and so it doesn't trigger it. But I also just
yep.
think it's like bad code on their part. Like they could integrate with it, but they're not. And so there's a few times where I have to manually do it, and I should notice that more and write it down and be like, why didn't this one do it?
It's
It gets
it
really frustrating, and
is.
that's one of the hardest things I've had to teach like my mom is like, if you create that, you kind of have to go into the password app and go like, you know, 7-Eleven, or not like my new 7-Eleven password is Joe Coleman. I don't know. Like, I can't imagine her going to 7-Eleven and for Slurpee discount, but like, it's just these random ones that you go into and you like make an account and it's like, you're going to have to use it again at some point, but like, don't make it a thing where you have to go figure it out later. I don't know.
Wait,
Just that little bit of
you
time.
are you having a conversation now about the complicated suggested passwords, the highly secure passwords with the letters and numbers?
No, it's like that odd. I think 90% of the time, like I just tell my mom, like always say yes, safe password. It's a
Yeah.
password app. And I show her the icon and make sure she knows and it's recognizable. So she does that. I feel like Fidelity was maybe one where it's like they did not ask to save it, right? And so like I was like, this is one where you're gonna have to come into this and they make it really hard to get your password back, especially if you screw up because it's like finance stuff. So they're real uber secure. So I was glad I was there at the time because I think it was one of those things where we created her username and password because she had to get a Fidelity account and transfer my dad's 401k over to her. So she had never had one. So it was this real important thing that we needed to do. And I was glad I walked her through with it because we created her username and then a password. And when I created that password, I was like, I don't know if it's going to save. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that right now because right, if you say next and go on, you're like, well, what was it? How do I go back and get it? All
And
that
was
stuff.
there a
So
typo in it? Yeah.
right. So I copy it. So I did the command C. I showed it and then I copied it. And I was like, I'm doing this. And I was trying to tell her, but I was like, you're never gonna remember. And she's not. She's never gonna do the steps that I did. Like it would take, 20 or 30 times of her doing that, which there's
Yep.
just not many apps where it's like that important to do.
Right.
But like I copied that and then we went in, we got logged in. I was like, okay, mom, it never saved your password. So this is how we're going to do it. So I opened the passwords app and there's a create new pass.
Yeah.
And then you have to put fidelity.com, and you have to put the
www. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You have to go manually do all this stuff. It's a huge pain. Um, but I was glad I had copied the password because then I was able just to put her email and that. And so, but once I had to go and do that, and I was like, okay, I'm logging out. I'm going to make sure like your Face ID gets you in, and it's pointing to the password app because I was also concerned I didn't have the right like URL or pointer, right? Because sometimes it's
Right.
the app,
Sure.
sometimes
It's the
a
login page. Yeah. You don't want to go to,
login page, and then Fidelity also has like my benefits Fidelity, and then there's another
yep.
anyways.
Yep.
So it was just like that was one in particular that I was like, there's no
How
way
was
my
it?
mom would have figured this out. And I'm glad I was here, and I'm glad we got it set up because now she's never called me once about the Fidelity thing, and she's been able to transfer money. So it's one of those like personalization things like, hey, we reduced the phone calls, and this was the right, like me being in person was worth it, kind of a thing. Yeah.
So that like that experience that you're describing right now, I think is why I feel so confident in the McMaster program that we do,
Mm,
where we're meeting with people every week because those kinds of things where you're like, there's just no way the customer is going to have the knowledge base in
right.
order to robustly go through and access these particular accounts or set this up. And so meeting with someone once a week is those issues kind of stack up and then we can go through them all on Tuesday and like get them set up.
Hmm.
Number one thing password wise that I think is a big benefit to the people who are in the McMaster program is especially when they're using two browsers.
And I don't know about the McMaster.
Oh, okay. So the format is it's outbound
But I
call.
mean, I'm sort of figuring it out, but yeah.
Yeah. So it's out. It's you. Some people are every other week if they just don't need that level of support and they're a little more tech savvy. But typically it's every week. Like if Jesse is in the McMaster program, we'll call you. We'll call Jesse Tuesday at 2 o'clock. Like that's your time. It's like physical therapy for your computer, basically.
Mm,
And then we'll
yeah.
go through like, because most problems that show up, like there's entropy in everyone's computers, like they just degrade over time. Like
Right.
just things kind of fall apart. But if you check in on and tune it up every week, it almost never has any problems. And if you do have something, they're usually a problem that people can make it a couple more days. If something
Right.
happens Sunday, like Scott's calling you on Tuesday at 2 o'clock and you can make it. Like I'll just use my email stopped working on my computer. I'll just use my phone. So
Right.
that's been very successful. But the main thing that's been successful is in the password side is number one, like you're right. Like there's some websites that don't work well. And then it's so annoying to me that Apple is like the last company that just will not let you see your password when you put it into iCloud.com or anywhere in the computer. There's no show feature for Apple. I feel like they're super pumped about being secure on that, but it's just causing big problems for a lot of people when they're trying to see what they're typing in. And then the other thing is
Well,
if
I thought there is though, like in the password, like because I feel like I
oh,
go to
in the
passwords and I
passwords app,
copy. Yeah.
yes. But I'm saying if you're logging in to any Apple service, you can't see like when you did what you did on Fidelity, where you showed the password and then copied it and then stuck it in there so that it's
Hmm.
which is
Right.
probably you could have manually done it because you typed it out, but people use that like automatic password thing. And if you use it on Apple, it's not you're never going to be able to see what the password is. So if you go to iCloud.com, you can't see the password as you type it in. If you log into the
Right.
Music
Right.
app, you can't see
Right.
them
But
type it in.
can't you go into to passwords and go see it there?
Yeah, but what if it's wrong? All the time people have an old Apple ID that's saved in there or none. And so they're typing in their password and they're frustrated because they don't know if there's a typo or not, right?
So is this a situation where I might have two iCloud password? Like, 'cause that happens to me too sometimes where it's like,
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
I had two iCloud accounts that, because it used to be .me and whatever, um, but I can't tell which one's accurate. So a lot of times I'll see two options come up and I have to pick between them and I don't know, I can't see what they are. Yeah.
Well, that's one, no, because in that situation, you're picking one of the two. The situation I'm describing is you have a book. You got a flip book. It has all your
Oh,
passwords
gotcha. Yeah,
scratched
yeah.
out. And then you just
Right,
bought a new M4 MacBook. And we're logging into the computer for the first time. You put in your email address and then you put in your Apple ID, which Apple was kind of the
right,
pioneers on the thing where they won't give you the password field until you put in the username.
right.
It's more secure, obviously, because a lot of companies have adopted it. I don't really know why it's more secure, but it must be. So you put in the thing and then get your password, and they have this long password written down that they can kind of barely read because it's handwritten and there's scratches all over.
Right.
We type it in and it says password's incorrect. Was there a typo? We got to try it again. Do you have another one written down? Right. So it really extends the process because Apple, there's one other company that I can't think of right now that doesn't let you see the password. I'll think of it in a second. It might be Zoom, which I'm about to rant about, but you can't see, there's no show password for any Apple stuff. There's a lot of situations where it's pretty annoying, especially because we're not in libraries anymore with like people looking over our shoulders. Like we all have computers. So let's just show the password would be my suggestion to the design team. And then number two, though, is when they have two browsers. Because like you're talking about managing
Oh, yeah.
fidelity, most people have Chrome. And most people you need Chrome for like Fidelity's bill pay probably doesn't run on Safari. So they go and then they put it in a Chrome, they change the password because the password it typoed and it's not right. Now they have a different password saved on Safari. So they get in these loops where they change their password and then they sign in again through the email link, which launches in Safari, and they put in that password they just made and it says the password's wrong. They don't put in the password they just made. They put in the password they just saved, but they saved it in the Chrome password manager and not in Safari, Apple's password book. And so they're different passwords and they get super frustrated. So in those situations,
I can see them not really real like it's funny to me because it's like you and I go into Chrome and we're like, oh, this is saving the password in Chrome.
now I
You
got to
know,
copy it.
my parents and stuff, they're like, oh, this is the password saver thing again. And like it looks a little different, but oh well, like sure it's the same thing, you know. They
Yeah.
don't understand like, oh, this is getting packaged up and saved in this other bucket. And it doesn't look any like the window doesn't look anything. It's like it looks different, but like, oh, things change all the time, you know. Whatever. They don't realize like they're not connecting the dots like I'm in Chrome, not in Safari. And so therefore this is Google entity versus Apple entity. And that's, I mean, just being able to articulate that and understand.
It's wild to see just how like there's it's close, you know. There is a passwords widget that I mean credit to Apple for trying, I guess. There is a passwords extension for the passwords app now on Chrome. I don't know if you've tried to use it yet. I don't recommend my customers to use it because
Mm-mm.
it's not very robust. It doesn't stay logged in. You have to give it a two-factor authentication code almost every single time you use it, but it
Mm-hmm.
will pull from the passwords app and put it into Chrome. And that will get
So I
better.
never use Chrome. I just do all
Never use
Safari.
Chrome.
I never do use Chrome like
Okay.
personally. Like
Okay.
I mean, even Fidelity and stuff like that, I have the Fidelity app or whatever. And there's a few things where it's like, this isn't working great, but um,
There's not very many anymore. It was like small banks like Ozona.
yeah,
Ozona's bill pay system, like it's so old, like it just not
yeah.
running Safari. Yeah, it just
Every
wouldn't
once in a while
quite pay.
I have to do that, but yeah, not too often.
Jesse, thanks so much for being here. This was super fun talking about design and all the elements that go into it. And I definitely want to have you back.
Perfect. Yeah, super fun being here. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you.